Hey, welcome back to the channel, Silver Dragon Crafts. This episode we're going to go back to the basics and work on techniques on how to build different sections of a house. And if you put them all together in all the different combinations, you could probably build about 48 houses. We did a little math on this, and my brother, who's a well-respected mathematician, came up with this little chart, and we came up with about 48 different ways. Now we're not going to build 48 houses on this video, but if you do all the different combinations, you can get to 48. What I'm using here is a real thin piece of the foam that everybody uses. I cut it really thin with the approx on hot wire cutter. And I think this is the Sharpie, the ultrafine Sharpie, and a ballpoint pen. And you just score the foam to the width of the planks that you want, depending upon the scale of miniatures that you're using. And make sure you go both ways, not like that. Go both ways by turning the foam over, so that way the indentation is the same on each side. So I did that right there with the ballpoint pen. And then I'm going to try and do some wood grain with the ultrafine Sharpie, and we'll see how that looks. This is the first technique of probably 6, 7, or 8, I can't recall. But I used 2 different utensils, one for separating the planks and one for drawing the wood grain. They all come out pretty good at the end, you'll see, when I show them side by side. But the technique is basically the same, it's just different utensils. It kind of comes down to your choice or your preference of how you wanted it to look. Some of them look a little comical, some of them look a little bit more realistic. But it depends on what you're building. If it's a fantasy setting or a more serious medieval setting, just choose the one you like. Try a couple of them, use your paint scheme, and see which one you like. You always got to remember, if you're not trying something new, you're not learning anything. Which makes me think, I'd like to thank all the new subscribers. Something obviously happened to my YouTube channel. I usually have about 100 views or something, or I had 20 subscribers for the shortest time. Then within the last week, the video views for my last project went up to 500, and there's 38 subscribers as of this evening. So I'd like to thank all of you guys for subscribing and watching the videos, and hopefully I can keep you interested, and we'll keep making videos, and maybe you guys can keep learning stuff. Yeah, I wish too that we could fast forward to just the finished product, but this is riveting. I mean, where else can you get quality entertainment like this? Foam, markers, tools, printed labels. I mean, this is good stuff. Come on. Okay, finally we get to the side-by-side comparison. You can see some of them look pretty good. I mean, that one's a little busy. This one I like. It's got good wood grain. It's got a nice knot hole in it. This one I don't think I like that much. Yeah, the lines were too short and too straight. That's my own fault. You might have a better outcome than I did, but that one was pretty cruddy. This one you can definitely see the burn marks from the chemicals in the Sharpie. That's what all those little black circles are, but they do disappear when you do your painting. What's next here? Moving the camera. Sharp pencil and a clay sculpting tool. That one's not bad. That's kind of like the one up on top. And then we got ultrafine Sharpie craft blade with yeah, that kind of looks like wind blowing across the window in a hurricane. So I mean, you're gonna use your own preference for whatever application you're using the boards for. It could be for a roof, it could be for paneling on the side of a wall. So it all depends on what you're using it for. Depends on which technique you use. But here we go finally with some paint. We're going to use Jeremy's black paint Mod Podge and a little bit of water mixture to toughen it up and give it a good undercoat for paint. And then after that we'll move on to the actual wood tones and such. This is where I realized that I almost forgot the most basic wood paneling technique out there. It's a ballpoint pen for the planks and a wire brush to score in the grain, and it really works well, and it's probably one of my favorite for when you're doing some kind of serious wood grain paneling. But if you're doing something more for whimsical or fantasy type stuff, it's probably not your best option. So you can see I'm using the ballpoint pen, doing both sides to make sure that the indentation is even and it's not one-sided. And then a couple passes with the brush. Make sure you do long strokes so you don't have a big gap in the middle. And then I'm going to realize that my paintbrush is in the bathroom. So I'm going to run over there, grab my paintbrush, because it was drying from the first set of Mod Podge paint. Then I apply the Mod Podge to this one so it's all caught up with the other techniques, and then we'll move on from there. I believe that said real brown. I know a lot of people use burnt umber when they do this step, and it's either that I don't agree with that or I'm completely out of it, one of the two. I'll let you kind of guess at which one it is. But I used real brown for the base coloring of all these that I did the different techniques on. And you want to do them all at the same time because something always goes wrong if you try and do them at a different time. So I can only hope that I don't show painting each and every one of the techniques. But the first coat is real brown, dab off a little bit so it's not too thick of a coat, and it covers up all the black in the grooves because you want some of that to show through, and it'll give it depth to the boards. Okay, after letting the real brown dry completely, this is honeycomb that I'm going to put on. Kind of a heavy dry brush to start giving it a little detail, a little color, and then bring out the details of the grooves that we put in earlier. And I would like to apologize for making you watch all 7 techniques get painted. I'm thinking we're going to do that again here. But, you know, hey, I'll put some music in, we'll make it nice. Grab yourself a frosty drink. Everything will be good. And I also realized that I had 7 techniques done, so the math of 48 is all shot to hell. So goodness knows how many houses you can build with an extra set of wood planks. So if somebody else wants to do the math, throw it down in the comment section and we'll see if we can figure out how many houses we can actually build with all these different techniques. Here's a couple close-ups of the paint job so far. You can see the details are brought out more prominently by using the different paints and then the different style of painting. The dry brush, definitely. I really like that ballpoint pen and the wire brush one. And what else? There, we'll zoom out a little bit and see what else we got here. Here's a paper towel with a question mark on it. Well, I think I was saying, which one do we like best? So we got to do the final coat of final dry brush with khaki to give it some highlights and definitely pull out some of those details. And I'm guessing we're going to have to watch all 7, so I'll be right back. Alright, once everything is dry, you can try putting a black wash on it. It's a good weathering technique. Sometimes it makes you really nervous because you spend a lot of time painting everything and making it look nice. Then you take this wash and put it on there, and you think it's going to destroy it, but once it dries, it actually looks really good, and it definitely brings out more of the details and the highlights of your product or whatever your project. So if you do decide to do the black wash, don't let it scare you. It will come out nice, and you'll like it when it's dry. It dries a lot lighter than when you put it on. Of course, we're going to watch all 7. We're going to put them on some pill bottles because we take a lot of pills because we're pill junkies. But you can see now that they're not too bright. They're definitely weathered a little bit. You can see the black paint at the bottom of the grooves to give it some dimension and some depth. Yeah, I really like that one. That one looks good. I think that might be the winner. Now this is when I was having issues with the craft blade and the Sharpie. There is a grain, so to speak, to the foam, and if you go the wrong way, it kind of bunches up and it kind of skips across, and it's not a smooth line. If you ever, yeah, you can see it there a little bit. But if you get into that trouble, change the angle of your instrument and everything should come out good. So it looks like the ballpoint pen and the sharp pencil and the ballpoint pen and the wire brush are the winners. Here I'd like to show you some options for walls and foundations. Oh, this is riveting. You don't want to miss this. I mean, if you're falling asleep, make sure you wake up because this is some good stuff. We're going to work on some different kinds of foundations. Most of them are rock or some sort of brick, river stone or something. But it's definitely a couple different techniques. So stay tuned, stay awake, grab a cup of coffee, enjoy the music, and I'll be back after I fix my Lego wall. Here is where I've decided that the Proxon is a little bit more practical than using scissors to try and cut out a whole bunch of little river rocks. And then to add texture, I'm doing the very popular squeeze in one hand, switch hands, and squeeze in the other hand. I think it's because somebody was sleeping at the time. I have the tumbler with the Dunkin' Donuts container and all the rocks in it, which I use usually, but I'm guessing somebody was sleeping, which is why I didn't use it that time. And here, always use foil on your rocks to give them a rough texture. I mean, you use the rocks or you squeeze them in your hand to round the edges and whatnot, but to give the surface that you're going to be looking at a good texture, definitely use a wad of rolled up tin foil and push it down into it. And then I'm going to just start gluing these in like they were used to build the foundation, the bottom half of the house. And then when I paint this, it'll look good because I'm going to do something that I saw Jeremy at Black Magic Craft do, where he paints a bunch of different bricks, a bunch of different colors. But we'll get to that in a few minutes. I always have a miniature nearby so I can make sure that the scaling is correct. Sometimes you build something. There's my Dunkin' Donuts rattler. Sometimes you build something with bricks, and it turns out that the bricks are the size of a house compared to the miniatures that you're using. So it's a good idea to keep a miniature figure nearby to keep the scale close. I mean, you definitely want it close. It doesn't have to be exact, but you want it close. So now I'm going to do a second foundation with bricks, individual bricks, and then we'll probably have to watch another technique after this. So hang tight, we're getting to the good stuff. And then when I'm done with these bricks and the foundation, we'll paint those, and I'll show you the thing that I was talking about with the painting of the individual rocks. This technique is a little time consuming. Down in front. This technique is a little time consuming, but if you do it right and you stagger the bricks and you push some further in and some further out, it looks a little bit more realistic than some, like I've done some in the past, I admit, that, oh, football time, that the bricks are just like a perfect brick wall, and we know that's not how they were. So definitely vary your bricks length and width and have some set forward and some set back. It makes it a pain in the butt to paint, but it'll definitely turn out better in the end, and you'll appreciate it more. Alright, here we're doing more wood planks, I guess. The orange brush is back out and is putting wood grain into these thin slices of foam. We're going to use the ballpoint pen and the sharp pencil on some, and we're going to use the ballpoint pen and the orange brush on the other group, and we'll see how they turn out. But we're definitely going to use these as this project goes forward. So let me do my pencil work and whatnot, and we'll see where it goes after this. Your guess is as good as mine if you want the god awful truth. Here we're making more wood planks. I chose the two that we liked. And that little piece of equipment there is a first attempt at a telescope. Didn't make the cut. It's for a different project you'll see soon here on the channel, so keep your eyes peeled for that. But it roughs up the edges of the planks really nicely so that they don't look like they're brand new from Menards or Home Depot or something. So they look like they might actually have been hand hewn by somebody back in the day. So if you can get your hands on some styrofoam, this is a good way to age the edges of the planks. Here's the third foundation technique. It's kind of a stretch to call it a different one. It's just different sized bricks. These are all square bricks. But you you cut them in half for the ends to make sure they stagger because you don't want the seams to line up. But that would be the third. There was the River Rock one, the smaller bricks that the Medusa was helping with, and now these square blocks. So that makes three. And then there's one more after this that you're going to have to endure. Here I'm just putting the last couple bricks in, and then I'm going to pick up the clay sculpting tool and show you can dig little sections out, knock off a corner, dig out a little hole in the middle, and it makes it look like the bricks are a little bit more weathered or they were damaged by something. It just adds a little bit more realism to the wall. Now this I think is the final and the fourth and final technique. It makes it look like the rocks were just hacked out of the stone wall by a bunch of amateurs. But it looks pretty good when you do the paint and put it on the house and then weather it and such. It's a painstaking, messy, pain in the butt to clean up technique, but it does look pretty cool. So here I've gone over to the Proxon and thinned out that big piece of foam that was there, and now I'm going to use the blade to cut different sized bricks, all different sizes, because if they're actually hand hewn out of a big stone wall, you're not going to have uniform bricks. So be smart about it. Use some common sense. I don't want to insult anybody, but if they're hand hewn bricks, they're not going to be the same size, so make them different. Cut up a whole bunch, put them in the Dunkin' Donuts shaker. But again, it's 6:30 in the morning, so the Dunkin' Donuts shaker goes away. I'm going to write myself a note here. Sleepy time. Oh yeah, so this is definitely when the rest of the people that are in the house were sleeping. So we're going to go back to the squish in one hand, switch, and squish in the other hand for rounding the edges. I don't think we're going to use the aluminum foil on this one because the texture is already there from the sculpting tool. So grab a piece of foam board, take the paper off, get all the paper, come on, there you go. And then a little tacky glue and start gluing the bricks on in the normal brick pattern. Yeah, I agree. This technique is definitely time consuming, but it does look good when you put the effort in. It looks good in the end. So sometimes your patience will be rewarded, or if you got a lot of free time because whatever. I don't know why you'd have a lot of free time. I just happen to have some just because I didn't work this day. So I came up with this idea. But usually if you're patient and you work through it, it'll look good. Alright, number 4 out of the way. We go back to grab number 3. The glue is dry, so they're not going to get torn off the foam board. And this is where I'm just digging out some corners, putting a couple holes in there, putting a couple scratches in. Because these bricks are big enough, some of the smaller bricks you couldn't really do this to. You probably could, but it might rip them right off the foam board. But this, you'll see when we do the paint job, that these look, there, that's a good shot. That the black paint will make them look like deep recesses from a broken brick. So definitely a good step to put in there if you've got the time. Alright, there's our 4 foundations, and this is where we're going to take a break because it is definitely getting long. It's been 27 minutes. If you made it this far, thank you. It's a credit to you and the way you were brought up. But be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Keep watching. I got a couple projects that I've got to just finish editing, and we'll get those out soon. So stay tuned and keep on watching.